So it's like, oh, hey, we're live. We didn't even know we're live. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
It's just after 2:00 in the afternoon in the East Coast and 11 a.m. in the West Coast. I have no idea what time it is in Ukraine, but it's later at night. There's a lot.
9 p.m.
9 p.m. There's a lot going on. Where in the world is Elon Musk, and what is he saying about Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill? We're going to cover that. Plus, we've got all the latest from Olga's Trump tyranny tracker. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. All these great people joining us. We'll just let everyone a minute or two to settle in here. But Olga, you said you needed your popcorn.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is a distraction, and frankly, we have a lot of very important things to focus on, but I am really, really enjoying this. And I text Julie, and I was like, my God, I'm enjoying this so much. I think Elmo is going to end up being the next Berezovsky. Because when Putin came into power, once he came into power, he started removing all the most powerful people in Russia. And this is fun to watch.
So who was that he removed? I don't know the story. So tell me.
Oh, he removed Berezovsky.
What was Berezovsky?
Berezovsky was one of the most powerful oligarchs under Yeltsin. And he pretty much had his media empire. And Putin seized it from him because after the Kursk nuclear submarine accident, Putin mishandled it so bad. I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, it was the most ridiculous thing. And as a result, you had a lot of Russians at the time die from this accident. The West offered help. Putin refused. And I'll never forget, this was like the first time because Putin was dry as a wall and everyone kept peppering him because this was at a time, under Yeltsin, there was still some free press. And this was at a time you had everyone like peppering him. What happened with the, Kursk submarine? And he finally snapped and he's like, it fucking sunk.
Finally showed some character. It's interesting because do you think Elon is trying to get at Trump like existentially? I mean, do you think that they maybe are trying to get him out of power so they can put Vance in place? Because I don't understand this move. It's clearly a Russian-oriented move because you got Rand Paul, who's very Russian or linked to Russia, let's call it that. Ron Johnson, very linked to Russia, and Musk. I mean, very linked to Russia. So you've got those three entities that are obviously coordinating their efforts. Now, what's the point of coordinating their efforts? Is the point to coordinate their efforts to get rid of Trump? Is the point just to hurt the GOP? Or is the point just to distract everyone so they can keep going on in Ukraine?
It's definitely a distraction. I don't know what's happening. All I do know is it's fracturing at this moment, the mega movement. I don't know if it, coordinated to the point to go after Trump. I don't know if there has been a war brewing because, I mean, the one thing that people need to know, when there's a dictator, they intentionally keep people, their inner circle, at war. I mean, it's just they never want. They have this paranoia. And if you see, in Russia, all of Putin's inner circle, he fuels the wars because he never wants to get to a point where they all sit and organize to remove him out of power. So he's always, like pushing these wars or taking actions to hand this industry over to this person, knowing that it's going to piss over that person. And he's always, and here, I mean, it could be as simple as there's something brewing, between them. I personally think after seeing all of this that someone leaked the Elon being on heavy drugs to New York Times from the Trump team last Friday. And I think they're just, it could be as simple as it's something not coordinated that Musk came in, is at war, maybe got pushed out because the other factions around Trump took over and, and got his their last word. And that he's just pissed off because he is kind of very, explosive. I mean, with anything. Yeah. I mean, I remember a few months ago, he was going after one of his baby mamas. And it was like, really? Like, you do this on social media? Like, go hire lawyers and have a conversation. So who knows? Or it could be something coordinated.
It could be, who knows? It's happening, though, for sure. Did you see the stuff about Stephen Miller's wife, Katie Miller, also leaving the White House with Elon Musk to work with him in the private sector or more? I don't know what their relationship is all about, but
Maybe she'll
that's
be
another.
baby mama number 50.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anyhow, well, it's interesting to watch. It's good popcorn watching, and it's certainly interesting. I mean, what worries me is that it could be really changing the guard here. I mean, we could really see a changing of the guard.
It
Um,
could, but just to get back to Stephen Miller, what's
mm,
interesting, right before you came on, I was scrolling through Twitter, and there's a account that monitors, who follows who unfollows. Elon Musk just literally like half an hour ago unfollowed Stephen Miller.
oh, really? Oh,
So, but as far as changing of the guard, I think this is the most incompetent people, frankly. Like lucky for us, they're doing a lot of damage, but they do not know how to dictator. um, and lucky for us, like if this is a way to change guard, I mean, they really have the mega world at war right now. Because at the
and it
same
could
time,
sink the bill. I mean, this bill could disappear. I mean, it may not. And if Elon Musk has the capability to do that to the signature policy of Donald Trump's
it might be
presidency,
in
having
Chicago,
bankrolled it,
Elmo.
that's a hell of a thing. So it'll be interesting to see. It does feel like there's a civil war inside MAGA right now, and there's the
Yeah.
Russians and the
So
others, and they're competing.
that's what I mean, that I think this is something more petty,
Mm,
just because of the fact, like, if you try to remove Trump, you wouldn't do it by causing a civil war within
right.
mega, because at the same time that
Mm,
Musk unfollowed Miller, he followed Jack Posobiec. So clearly,
mm.
you see this fracture between them, and you have half team Musk, half team Trump. And I mean, and the fact that Trump sat there and, on the press conference with the German chancellor saying that, Musk has Trump derangement syndrome.
It's very good. It's a very good line.
Anyway, back to real news.
Yeah,
Sorry.
let's get back to
Bye.
the day 136 of the Trump tyranny tracker. Unbelievable 136. We're here, and we're looking at everything the Trump administration has done in the last 24 hours to increase their authoritarian hold over America. And the top story is really about Trump has launched the Operation at Large, his largest ever immigration crackdown with ICE, excuse me, aiming to arrest $3,000 undocumented immigrants per day. Over 5,000 personnel from federal agencies, including the FBI, DEA, IRS, and up to 21,000 National Guard troops have been pulled in to prioritize immigration enforcement, often at the expense of other national security and criminal investigations. Can you still hear me? Because I can't hear you.
I hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is basically, we're watching the creation of a police state. Once you start having, various agencies being fused together to create this force right now, again, we keep saying this is right now going against immigrants, but then it can easily turn on Americans. And the fact that you have this, joint coordination between the Pentagon, between FBI, between DEA, IRS, I mean, postal police. I mean, like, frankly, it's everyone. And this is where it gets extremely dangerous, because we're watching a police state being
Yeah,
formed right in front of our eyes.
absolutely. And this quota is very disturbing. The fact that they have to actually pick up 3,000 people and they're going to do everything they can to fill that quota every day because, they've got other urgent needs around filling those prisons and other things that they need to do. But to have this all of government approach to picking up undocumented workers, it's not, it's not, it doesn't make sense. The crisis is not that bad, obviously, but he's obviously just pushing this as a signatures platform for him. So
This is building a police state, and I mean, we do have multi-agency cooperation, but that's usually if there's like a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. You have FBI with local police, and depending which, maybe DEA, you'll have a few authorities working together and jointly to share information and
yeah.
assist. But this is not this.
Someone was just mentioning on the chat Palantir, and of course Palantir works across all those government institutions right now. So there's a central database, and maybe that's the reason that they now have it all linked under one database that they can actually execute this big thing. But it's very frightening. People are going to get picked up on the streets everywhere. People are going to be picked up at their workplaces. And what's going to happen to the economy as this, just goes out of control? They're removing workers.
And it's going to expand because, like I said, right now it's illegal. At first, it was illegal, dangerous immigrants. Now it is actually legal immigrants because if you are here seeking asylum, you are very, very legal. If you are going to court for your asylum hearing, you are following the law. You are here legally. You are granted entry into this country while a judge hears your asylum case. So now they're going after legal immigrants who are here seeking asylum, and the judge has not yet ruled yes or no, and they're picking them up at court. Next, there'll be naturalized citizens, which you could frankly, is pretty much everyone in this country. I mean, a huge chunk of this country, is naturalized. I'm a naturalized citizen, and you have a lot of mixed families. Naturalized citizens, their kids are then U.S. born. And then it expands to Americans. So, I mean, this is a police state.
Frightening stuff. We spoke about it on the course on the seminar on the other day on Tuesday this is all about the fear of the other and creating that fear, but then also now really institutionalizing that fear as something you can remove. It's really terrifying what's going on. Moving to our second story, Trump has appointed Thomas Fugate. I think I'm saying it correctly. He's a 22-year-old recent college graduate and former Trump campaign worker, and he is overseeing the Department of Homeland Security's main terrorism prevention hub, CP3. The role includes managing an $18 million grant program to counter violent extremism, despite Fugate's having no apparent counterterrorism credentials at all. His previous jobs were landscaping and working as a grocery store. I mean, that's basically what he's done in his life. Now he's preventing terrorism.
I don't know if I should cry or laugh.
This is a doozy, this one. I honestly, I looked at the story today and I was like, what is happening here? I mean, this guy, he's got no experience at all. He's saying maybe smart guy, he may be capable, but he has no experience in this field at all. And so you've got, real security threats, real terror threats happening in this country right now. And this is the guy who's going to spot them. He's going to thwart them. I mean, it seems ridiculous.
So
it's like leaving the door open.
To get out of my delusional laughing because of how delusional and dystopian this is. And someone asked where are Americans going to go? I don't know. We might be sent to Libya. I honestly don't know where they're going to send us. I mean, right now they're sending people wherever they want. Gulags in El Salvador, Libya, Rwanda.
Greenland.
This is, who knows? I mean,
they're going to populate it.
Right. Exactly. They'll be like Russia, where they shove their people in and then say, you see, this is our territory now.
It's always been American.
Yeah, exactly. But as far as with this, I mean, this is so insane. And the fact is now, to get to a serious point, we talked about this before. USAID has been cut. That means all the programs have been cut. These programs and these USAID workers were our ears and eyes on the ground across the whole world. As a result, the Pentagon is now warning that you have Al-Shabaab, a terrorist organization, various ISIS factions, Al-Qaeda factions, growing strength. And the Pentagon, I forgot his name, warned that the U.S. is prime for a terrorist attack, that they can pull it off because right now they're strengthening, they're recruiting from everything happening in the Middle East and the way, Trump is just so bombastic and insane. So the fact that we have heightened terrorist alerts here, we have these Nazi groups and paramilitary groups like Oath Keepers and others, Proud Boys and 3%ers, all emboldened. They dismantled the task force to monitor domestic terrorists. And we have a 22-year-old intern who had zero experience unless he learned how to counter terrorism in the grocery store,
Mm.
who is going to be leading this effort to try to prevent an attack on U.S. While you have experienced people like the FBI and, all the various law enforcement agencies being right now diverted
Yeah.
to going and knocking on doors to look for immigrants.
That there
I
is the
mean, the
crucial
whole
link you're pointing
situation.
out there is really true. I mean, this is really terrible that they've got the FBI out there chasing illegal aliens and not focusing on terror threats. And then they've got this guy at States who's going to be who doesn't know what he's doing. He's a 22-year-old. What does he know about terrorism? And then you've got all these other things we've been mentioning the last few days about these Russian operatives that have taken over the disinformation, counter disinformation efforts at the state. And you've also got the guy at the Pentagon who's no longer providing the right weapons to Ukraine or requiring. This is, it seems like the doors have been opened to people who are either incompetent or have ties to the Kremlin, basically.
And at the same time, we can't forget that, Iran has so many Iranian agents, assassins running on U.S. soil. I mean, the FBI had a whole task force, just for that and for plots to assassinate Iranian dissidents in the U.S. So, I mean, you have all these agents from other countries running around. You have our domestic terrorists. You have overseas terrorists organizations who are now, able to grow because our eyes and ears are not on the ground anymore. And then you have a 22-year-old leading this effort to prevent an attack. I mean, the whole thing is just,
It's just it's shocking. It's shocking and scary.
Frankly, this should be criminal. Honestly, if we had Congress, this is something that you call in this 22-year-old and call in administration officials and say, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is our country, our people. And like, what are you setting us up for a terrorist attack?
Someone on the chat is saying here that this guy was not even alive on 9/11. I mean, that just tells you how much experience he has. Our third story focuses on Trump officials diverting anti-drone rocket fuses originally purchased for Ukraine to the U.S. Air Force units in the Middle East. They're citing urgent threats from Iran and Houthi forces. The Pentagon quietly notified Congress and skipped a NATO meeting on Ukraine aid to make this happen. They're taking weapons from Ukraine and sending it to the Middle East. That's unbelievable.
And specifically, not just weapons, anti-drone technology.
Which is so
I mean,
vital.
what has been happening in Ukraine, besides Ukraine taking out 40% of Russia's strategic bombers? But I mean, the days before that, including and continuing on now, you have, I don't know, we're now up to maybe 1,500 drones in a few days, like 4 or 5 days, that are swarming Ukraine, that are, hitting buildings where people are sleeping at night, burying people in rubble. And that's it. So, I mean, the fact that it's specifically anti-drone. And I thought that Trump said he's friends with the Houthis. He just
Yeah, he said there
announced
was
that we
peace.
have
Wasn't
such
there
a good
peace?
peace, and we have a partnership. And Iran also. I thought we're good. We're working on this
This new
BS
deal.
negotiation, which
Yeah.
is not a deal or a negotiation. This is a lie. But so you need to pull anti-drone technology to move
Well,
to
especially
that
because
region now.
Putin yesterday in the call with Trump was threatening, not even threatening, saying he will respond aggressively to the very successful attack by the Ukrainians on those bombers. But Trump went out and repeated that, and on top of that, they're actually taking away the defensive weapons that Ukrainians need to combat a Russian attack, which is it's just awful.
And yeah, Julie, the Iranians did have an assassination plot on Trump. The FBI monitored and was, warning him and protecting him last year during campaign. So yes.
Our final story, it's actually the fourth story, it's not our final one. The US is refusing to provide air defense support for a planned UK-French reassurance force in post-war Ukraine. European allies had pushed for US security backing to deter future Russian aggression, but were told no formal guarantee would be offered. This is, again, just reprehensible that we're not going to be there for Ukraine.
Yeah, and it is part of more of the same. I mean, the war's not ending, unfortunately, anytime soon, unless Europe gets its act together and helps, Ukraine defeat Russia once and for all. That way they could go lick their wounds and kill their leader for failing his imperious conquest. But just the fact that, they could have said yes. I mean, there's going to be no European troops in Ukraine for quite a while. Because, I mean, this is post-war. Well, we could be post-war in 2030. I mean, the war started in 2014. But the fact is that they didn't even, bother like with any pretense. And no, sorry, we don't want to be involved, period.
And why?
That's it.
Why wouldn't they want to be part of the security guarantees of our own
I mean,
allies? It's
would
ridiculous.
Putin allow his employee to
No,
to
no.
be involved
But
and
again, as you
cover?
point out, pretense might not be a bad thing to show right now because it's becoming so obvious that that's where he's getting his marching orders from.
Yeah,
This is really terrible that they're abandoning Ukraine in the after war, but we're not there yet. So it feels like a faraway problem, not an immediate problem when they've got anti-drone technology that's not getting. That seems far
exactly.
more urgent. Our final story today is economists are raising concerns about the reliability of U.S. inflation data after the Bureau of Labor Statistics admitted it used imprecise methods in April due to staffing shortages. This has been a concern of mine for a long time, that they're just going to fake the data. And it seems like they've done it. I mean, or at least have been imprecise, whatever that means. But it does look to me like they've fiddled with the numbers.
Welcome to Russia. Um, any report, economy report, or frankly, any report that comes out from any government agency is always altered, fabricated, in order to serve the agenda of the Kremlin. And here, Trump knows, I like how they, diplomatically said staffing shortages. Had I written the article, I would say this has nothing to do with staffing shortages. This has to do with withholding data that may be harmful for Trump. And we know how obsessed he is with inflation. Luckily, he's only obsessed with inflation. He doesn't understand, that the bond market is, screaming and that you have other indicators, underlying indicators showing a recession and the U.S. in for hard times. But the problem is that, here inflation is his key thing. He ran on inflation and lied about lowering inflation and whatever, and now we see that the data is being altered. So I mean, it's we were expecting it. I didn't expect that it would come out this soon. We're in June, that people would start picking up
But
and saying this, but here we are.
let's just be clear about what's going on here, because if they're fiddling with the numbers, it means they can't take any reaction or reactive measures to alleviate any problems. So if there's runaway inflation, we wouldn't even know about it. So the Fed couldn't react, and other parts of the Treasury couldn't react. That is a real problem. If there's no ability to respond to the data, we'll never find out about it, or we'll find about it too late. And of course, inflation is sure to go up because of the tariffs. That's just the way it's going to be. It might happen a little later. It might not happen right now. But if they're hiding the numbers, we won't know. It'll just be a continuing slide of consumers not being able to afford their lives anymore.
Yep. And then just to zoom out a drop, this is extremely problematic because once a government starts altering economic data, you can bet that every single country is, going to reconsider having deals with the government.
Mm-hmm.
And you can bet that every private individual is going to rethink having, their corporations inside the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you start fabricating this data, this is something, that you break the trust in the world. And the U.S. used to be gold standard between our Treasury and all our agencies, our reporting. We never worried whether it's going to hurt the White House. We reported numbers as is. So
Now we're like China, basically, just making up numbers as we go along. You mentioned the bond market, and that is a big issue, of course, because the bond yields are much higher. I'm sure I'm using the wrong terminology there, but it's creating a pressure on people's housing markets everywhere across the country, where we're seeing there's a lot more sellers than buyers in almost every real estate market in North America, but particularly, in the United States. And what we're seeing is, people are not being able to afford their homes anymore. Those sweetheart mortgage deals that they had, they're no longer affordable. And so now, as these bonds become harder to sell, that's pushing up interest rates, and that's going to make more people not be able to afford their homes. We could be facing not only an inflation crisis, but a housing, a real estate crisis. Not to mention the car crisis from the tariffs and the steel tariffs. I mean, this is becoming quite a mess.
Not to mention default, because I mean,
Right.
the lower the interest rates are, the less we're paying interest on our, God knows, I don't even know what trillions we're up to. And then on top, adding more trillions and having to pay, higher interest, double the interest rate on on the interest on our debt. I mean, this is a dangerous situation. I think, I mean, frankly, they can alter the data, with Russia, you still can get data, not through official channels, but just looking through company releases and whatnot. So, I mean, we'll figure it out quickly, but the whole thing is very authoritarian. This is like a typical dictator tactic that I want data, and we've seen this with intelligence. I want intelligence to alter to prove what I want and what I'm saying. I want data altered to economic data to prove the inflation's going down, and he can't hide it. People will get laid off. Companies will have to, cut back. We are going to have empty shelves. Yesterday, I watched a segment, with the port, Los Angeles, chief from the port, who said that right now, the amount of ships that are coming in are like literally a third, one
Mm.
third of what normally is supposed to come in. And he said that normally June is the busy time because all these ships normally coming in are for back to school stuff in
Right,
late
makes sense.
July. And he said, oh, in 2 weeks, the next round of ships are all Halloween stuff and, all the other marketing for holidays. And then by early next month is the Christmas stuff. If we I mean, this is not that far off that we're going to start seeing shortages, on shelves. So
You, I remember
he can alter it. He won't hide it, you know.
I remember you predicting this when we did a show, I don't know, maybe 8 months ago, when you were talking about what will happen. And one of the things you predicted was the suffering that average Americans are going to go through as they deal with all these economic hits that they're going to get. And sure as anything, this is what's happening. We're seeing a real attack on the American consumer, on the American people, and their ability to have normal lives. And this is not going to be business as usual going forward. This is going to be a very different kind of environment as we head into the next few months and years here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very typical strategy because dictators, there's a reason I've never seen a dictatorship anywhere in the world, historically or now, where you have the whole country just enjoying life. I mean, dictators have the ruling elite class and the insiders who have the vast amount of wealth and, power. And then you have the everyone else. The more you keep people sick and broke and unable, focused on issues that are destroying their household and their family, the less likely they are to resist. In America, I think it's actually going to be opposite because dictatorships normally have the seeds of dictators, like dictatorial, like tendencies within the country, so it's easier for it to take root. But he's using a dictator's playbook, banking on that the more people lose their job and lose their health care, and the cancer research for their children has been canceled, and all this pain and suffering. He's banking on that people will be too preoccupied to save their families and just to survive, so they won't be able to organize. I mean, I have news for him. Americans are going to be different because it's just Americans are not, that fuels them. Like you saw federal
Yeah.
workers being purged. These people, apolitical, have never stepped out to a protest, suddenly forming a protest to push back against the government while they're unemployed and just had, their whole life upended and don't know how to pay their rental mortgage, the next month. So
This is the kind of stuff we're going to be tackling in our new 8-week course that we're doing, a seminar throughout the summer about authoritarianism 101. We started on Tuesday. It was a great session, and we're going to do another one this coming Tuesday. People should sign up, especially if you're a paid subscriber. You do have to be a paid subscriber to sign up. But this is a very detailed, in-depth look at what authoritarianism is. We'll be looking at things like we're talking about right now, how authoritarians manipulate the economy and what they do in order to manipulate the economy, and how you can react and the right messaging to react. Plus, we'll give you the toolkit to track for yourself where we are in terms of authoritarianism and how that keeps building. Plus, all the right messaging and the right approach to tackling authoritarianism as it keeps rearing its head in America.
Yep. And for Paula, she asked, it's on Google Meets. We decided to do it on Google Meets. And there's the registration link. Both Zeph and I have, put out a post on Substack post on what the course is, what every week we're going to address, and the link to register for next Tuesday. And that's it. So it's on Google Meets.
Okay. And we'll be back tomorrow for another edition of the Trump Tyranny Tracker, day 137 it'll be. And everyone should subscribe to the Trump Tyranny Tracker at .substack.com or my Substack at narrative.org, NARATIV.org. I'll be back in just under half an hour with Dean Blundell.
Tune in. Yes. 28 minutes. Tune in to Jeff.
I better figure out what we put on the show today. We'll see you all then. And have a great day, Olga. Nice to see you and nice to see everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.